We're back. Lionminded Podcast is back. I did it, Mum. I did 2 in a row with not 8 months in between. We did it. I am the big laser monk, Mr. Steal Your Joke and Make It Funnier. And I'm joined with Mr. Steal Your Vote, Ceri Powe. He's my guest for this week. Recently run for council in Uplands Labour Swansea, and he's a parent, and we're going to talk about lots of stuff today. But as always, we're going to start the podcast off with just talking about the week. Have you had a good week, Ceri Powe?
It's been a lot busier than I thought it was, given that the election is over. I think I've spent more time in the pub than anywhere else.
Drown in sorrows, or?
Well, not really. It was a friend's birthday party on Friday, and then a couple of people want to meet up and have a chat about what happened. Then there's meetings in between, in between that and sorting Arlo out. It's just been busy. It's just been, I don't know where last week went.
It has been busy. With my kids, Rory took 2 shots to the head this week. I think he's practicing to be a wrestler. He took a chair to the back of the head when someone was lifting one up, and then he fell and landed on his face, which makes a change because the week previous, Ace was hurting himself every day, ended up in hospital with a lump on his head, which he's still, I think he's got a bit of PTSD or something, because it was quite a big fall and he fell down steps, landed on his head, and ever since then he's been really scared of everything, and he's been having nightmares where he wakes up going fall and purple eye, because it was right above his eye and it was purple, and he keeps going purple eye. But Ace, he's got the social skills of a grumpy old man, but I did see him playing with some friends this week, which was nice. It was nice. They get to a certain age where they start socializing a bit, and I think he's a lot more introverted than Rory, because Rory's very extroverted, and that's going to be a bit of a topic of today. Would you say you're introverted?
I don't know. I always thought I was, and then I don't know. I feel like I'm extroverted to a point where I've got my social clock, and then when it runs out, then I just sort of go into a bit of introversion. I kind of feel like I really love my own company, but at the same time, I can thrive in a group of people as well. But I've got my limits, I suppose.
Yeah. Because obviously we go way back. We go back to about 14, sort of probably teenagers before that. And yeah, I definitely say you found your extroversion over the last couple of years. You've always been quite loud, in the right setting. But yeah, I see what you mean. I don't think I could put you into a category of introvert or extroverted. You're kind of one with tendencies of the other, I'd say.
Yeah, that's probably it. I'm a introvert / extrovert comedian.
That's it. Yeah. Rory started doing animals in his class. It's the topic for this term, animals. And he came home one day and he proudly told me our class had an email from Sir David something. I was like, do you mean Attenborough? He's like, yeah. There must be some email that gets sent out to schools from Mr. Attenborough himself. But he's chuffed with it, and we've been watching loads of videos about animals, and we watched a 10-minute video about tarantula eggs in a sack and being cut open and all the tarantulas coming out, and Rory absolutely loved it. And every time I try to tell him an animal fact, he's like, well, Sir David Attenborough says. I'm second class to Sir David Attenborough in this house. We've got a book about Sir David Attenborough, actually. I need to get that out. It's talks about his life when he was getting into animals when he was a kid and how he grew up and stuff. I have to find that. It's quite good. What else have I got? Last week, I recorded the podcast, and editing it was a bit of a nightmare. I somehow ended up with a 78 gigabyte file for a 30-minute video. I don't know how. Even when I like put it out, like saved it as a video file, it came out with like nearly 30 gigabyte the video that went on YouTube. I have no idea how. It must be like literal retina capabilities in that video.
You exported in 8K, is it?
It's like 16K or something. But I learned a lot. The last week I was sort of, if I don't record it now, I'll end up putting it off for another 6 months. So I didn't test anything beforehand. I just went and I did it, and I accidentally recorded the entire podcast with the microphone really far away from my face, and you can't hear half of it. So I've changed that this time, and I've moved it in. So that's good. And I also streamed some Tony Hawk over on Twitch, and I'm really bad at that game, but I love it so much. Every one of them. I've always been bad at them, but they're so much fun. I was doing Tony Hawk's 3. So we did that. But yeah, other than that, I was in the wellbeing center, and on a Thursday they get a chef in. This guy is called Satonji, and he is French / South African, I think, or West African, and he makes food every week for people to come in and buy and eat. And he had like a peanut stew with banana dumplings and stuff, proper West African food, and it was so nice. But I had to sit there working, and I could smell him cooking it, and it was a nightmare. But I spoke to the guy that runs the men's club there, the men's meetings, and he said that his idea for it is he's the vessel that sort of gets it running, but he'd like other people to take over at some point. And he said I could take over like 1 week a month or something to try and get that. So it's a step in the right direction. So apart from being in the pub and playing 2K22, how's parenting been this week? Because you've got Arlo that lives with you.
Yeah.
He's nearly 1.
Yeah.
How's that been this week?
It's been good. He's at the stage now where he can crawl and stand up if he grabs something, which means he grabs the TV stand and he likes to try and touch what's on the TV. It's trying to get him out of the habit of doing that, because the TV is quite a big TV, and if it fell on him, well, there'd be no more TV, and I wouldn't be happy about that. Apart from he can be a bit of a handful when he wants to be, but I think it's just because he's full of it. He just wants to explore and get into everything. And it's my third child. I'm a little bit like I can't wait for you to start walking and start doing things a little bit more by yourself. But at the same time, it's really nice to sort of be here and sort of sharing his excitement that he can stand up on things that he shouldn't stand up on.
Yeah.
He's generally easygoing, but just can be a handful lately when he wants to be.
Reminds me of someone there.
Who's that?
You, when you were younger. Little rebellion.
Yeah. That's
you. Right. I'm going to have another sip of my Sneak energy drink, which we're not sponsored by, but we should be, because I love Sneak. And we'll take a quick break, and we'll be back to talk Ceri Powe. Lionminded is all about supporting parents with their mental health. We have resources on both parenting and mental health help, self-care ideas, community surveys, fundraising, the Lionminded Podcast, and blog posts from myself and guest writers talking honest parenting and mental health struggles. We also run social events in the local area, such as our parents' mental health mornings and men's mental health mornings, with much more events to come. Head to lionminded.uk and follow us on the socials to keep up to date and join in as we help start the conversation on mental health. And we're back. It's Big Laser Monk, Big Ceri Powe. We're back. We're going to talk with Ceri now. Ceri Powe, introduce yourself and your background. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Ceri Powe, or Ceri Powe, as all my friends call me. My background really was, throughout, I could go in the long version or the short version. I'll start the long version. Didn't do very well in school, picked myself back up, went through college, went to university, didn't do very well in university, had 2 children, spent the best part of 7 or 8 years languishing away in a call centre. Throughout that time, as a member of the Labour Party, didn't understand how any of that worked until the last year. Started getting more involved with that, and 31 now, and sort of felt like I've found a bit of my own purpose.
Brilliant. And you got 3 kids: Oliver, Eleanor, and Arlo. Yeah,
that's right.
I've not met Arlo yet. I need to fix that. That's a bad friend on my part.
Well, to be fair, there's been all this COVID stuff lately.
All that COVID stuff lately. Don't know if you've heard about it. Worldwide pandemic.
Yeah, it's gone under the radar, that has, a little bit.
No, you got to read, it's not even been in the papers. What's been going on?
I know, they're suppressing that. Bloody Tories trying to keep us in our offices. So he's got Oliver, who is 8, and he'll be 9 this year. Eleanor, who was 6 this year. She's born on St. David's Day, which is when you're a little bit of a nationalist, is very, very proud of that. And Arlo, who's born on 29th of May, who will be 1 in just under 2 weeks.
Wow. That's flown.
I know, right?
Oliver being nearly 9 has flown. I remember vividly when he was born. I remember that day.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Speaking of COVID, I wanted to talk about your parents. Well, Helen, I never met your father before he passed, but Helen, your mother, when I've been over your house and spent time with you, Helen's an amazing woman. But she's a nurse as well.
Yeah, that's right.
How'd she cope with COVID? Because that must have been quite hard working in.
Yeah. So,
hospitals.
I mean, with the hospitals and COVID, well, Caris, my wife, works as an occupational therapist in the community, so she has to work in the health service. I think there were a lot of strains in the health service overall surrounding COVID. There was shortages of PPE, shortages of staff, shortages of everything. So I think they really, worked to the bone. I know my mum now is a discharge liaison, so they tend to discharge people out of hospital. So I think it was very difficult at the time. And when I was talking to my mum during COVID, she was saying the army's been here doing things. It's never a good sign when the army turn up. So, no. I think that because that was early days as well. So that kind of displayed how serious the situation would be. Caris was pregnant at the time. So she was told to stay at home and work from home, which she did for pretty much the entirety of the pregnancy. And I think just all around it was difficult, no matter what sector you worked in. I worked in an office. It was difficult in an office, and the transition to working from home, that was difficult for a lot of people, because it's very difficult to separate your home life and your work life when your office is about 2 foot away from the sofa. However, it is really nice. It's really nice to finish a day, walk 2 seconds, and then you're on the sofa. So it's got bad
ready to blast WWE 2K19 at the time.
Yeah, ready to hope that not every computer game had been delayed into 2022.
Yeah, and the consoles.
Yeah, and that.
Warning for the listeners at home: I have asked Ceri to keep political talk to a low, but it's hard to keep a lid on Ceri Powe sometimes, you know. He's a very passionate man.
Yeah, look at my wall.
Yeah, I don't think we are putting out an audio version of this, so if you're watching, there is a big wall of lots of Labour history for the many and the few. I can see Jeremy Corbyn. I can see I'm guessing those are classic Labour posters.
Yeah, they are. I got something cool as well over here. It's not on the wall.
Am I going to be in a debate about whether this is cool?
Probably.
I know exactly what this is going to be as well.
Yeah, well, that's the man himself. All the people I met.
Have you signed it?
I've not signed it because I'm not a member of the Senate, but if that happens, I will sign it myself.
One day.
One day.
As you mentioned earlier, you're quite a wild teenager back in the day, I think.
Yeah.
But I've watched you grow up, and I've watched you lose and find your way many times. And lately, you've definitely found your roots as a parent and a husband. And I think a big confidence boost for you has been your work within the community for a couple of different groups, right?
Yeah, it's been a few.
Yeah.
I've not done as much as I would like to do, but you know, I got a bit more time now. I'm not trying
on the campaign trail.
Yeah.
And am I right in thinking the main thing that got you to this point of activism, I suppose, would be when COVID came and the workplace you were in wasn't taking it seriously, like the sort of health and safety and following the guidelines, and that got you sort of into unions and that side of things. And that, I think that's something that boosted up your, what am I trying to say? Boosted up your confidence with it, and
yeah,
I feel like that was a big stepping block as to where you've got to now.
Yeah. I think that was I've always been like a politically minded person. You know, I was very infused by, you know, the Labour Party, the Labour movement, and, you know, I'd always advocate being part of a union. So join one if you haven't already. Unite Community are taking on. It's £2. Anyway, enough of the plug.
That was all a setup for you to just get some plugs in.
So I worked in an office in the city centre. It was a multinational company. Well, international. Multinational, international is the same thing, but
they were into some big things.
Yeah, £1 billion company, and work from home orders came in. We all remember Boris on the telly telling us, you know, you must stay at home, you must work from home,
stay away.
Yeah, and management just wasn't taking it seriously. There was no like social distancing. There was no effort to work from home. It was a company that, you know, sells the internet, you know, surely, and they were sending out briefings saying that they've managed to get Italy working from home. At the time, people in Italy were dying in the streets. So I questioned that, and I questioned that heavily. I probably put my job on the line there, but, you know, it was worth doing for, you know, my colleagues and wider Swansea as well. Because if a super spreading event happened in that office, that's about 500 people, and then that could spiral into even more than that. And I even challenged the union at times on their approach to it. And I got the local MP involved, and within about 2 weeks, we were all working from home. It was a really good victory, not just for me. I didn't lose my job, which was great. It was a good victory for, you know, friends, colleagues, friends and colleagues who work in that office. Mm-hmm. Because by having the people working from home, they had the resource then to be able to actually properly socially distance in the office. Mm-hmm. I mean, I remember going in one day, and, you know, the COVID, I think the COVID death rate at the time was like 1%. And I remember saying to a manager, a member of the management team there, and I said, well, if I give you a bowl of M&Ms, 100 M&Ms, and one can kill you, would you take an M&M? And their answer was yes. And I remember being really disgusted by that, because I wouldn't. I would
I'd eat 99 of them.
Yeah. It just wasn't taken seriously. It wasn't taken seriously as a serious illness. That can be true of how the media have reported on it as well. It's just a cold, it's just the new flu, it's just this. But when you open the news and see news reports of like healthy 18-year-olds are dying, people who were my age at the time are on ventilators fighting for their lives. I took the more we need to take it very seriously view, and I fought hard. I even had a one-to-one with the CEO about it, and I put the questions to him, and that really sort of set me off on this current path. If it wasn't for things like that, I probably wouldn't have been more involved with local party politics. So even local events, once you stand up, it's if you don't stand up, it's easy not to stand up. But when you do stand up, it's difficult to sort of sit back down.
I like that.
Yeah.
Man of wisdom, man of the people. So yeah, you ran for councillor in Uplands. How did you find the process of that? How did you find it?
Well, the process of it is strange because you have to go through many internal processes within your local Labour Party in order to even be considered to be a candidate. And it's probably the same of any of the other major political parties as well. So you have to do an interview, then you have to put yourself forward to the area that you want to represent. Then you have to do a hustings. At the time, it was all on Zoom. And then you have to hope that people vote for you. And then people vote for you, and then you kind of, it's thrown a little bit in the deep end then. And, I got selected, I believe, probably the end of November, and the election was May. So it felt like, we had a lot of time to sort of work out what we were going to do. You work with 3 other people in a multi-member ward like Uplands that you never met. And, you have to make an effort to get on the same page before you even start campaigning. And then the campaigning starts. And I was always reluctant about campaigning, knocking doors. I was probably of the mind that maybe it's not as effective as people would say it is. That's wrong. It is as effective as people say it is. But like, you knock someone's door and have a conversation with them about what they feel about the area, how they're going to vote. And all the conversations were really nice, were really pleasant, to be fair. I used to do door-to-door sales way back when. And, that's my impression.
I remember. That you weren't a fan of it at the time at all.
No, hated it.
Could you do it now?
I don't think I would say I'm a particularly good salesman of products. So it's hard to knock someone's door and sort of try and sell them on a subscription to, like, I don't know, a charity or change their energy bills or anything like that, because I think people get their backs up when they're being sold something. Yeah. But when you're knocking the door, as like, you knock the door and you'd say, I would probably say something like, I'm your local candidate with the Labour Party. Are you going to vote in the election? What's the issues? And people are much more open to that. But I think that comes from people aren't terribly used to seeing their politicians sort of walking around knocking their doors, because it doesn't happen all the time. And
no.
People have complaints and issues that transcend social media. Sometimes you only see a snapshot of an area's issues on their like local community pages. You really get to dig deep into it when you speak to them on the doorstep. So I think, we ended up at the peak right before the election. We were out every day for about 2-3 hours at a time. On day of poll, we were out 14 hours, something like that. And it's draining, but it's really rewarding to be able to just sort of, speak to people and have people believe in you. So I believed more in the Labour Party when Jeremy Corbyn became leader, particularly down around the 2017 election. It felt like there was a real sense of hope and change that would that would change the direction of the country. Unfortunately, it was wrong at the time.
I remember that hope. It died very quickly.
I know. But then when you stand for an election, that kind of feeling, you feel you are going to be the one who's going to deliver things for people. So when someone answers the door and they say, oh, there's a problem with antisocial behaviour in the lane, it's not a case of, oh, I'll feed that back X, Y, and Z. On the 6th of May, if the count goes your way, that's your responsibility to sort out. And, people believe in you to do that sort of stuff.
Mm.
And, it's that sort of feeling that I don't think you'd get anywhere else, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really hard. It's grueling, going out in the rain, just knocking doors, delivering leaflets. But it was probably one of the best experiences I've ever had. And we were fortunate enough that Arlo was little enough that he came out on nearly every session. He got very good at holding the leaflet. And he got a cuddle with Mark Drakeford, which I didn't get when I met him. So
no.
No.
I'm not going to comment on that. About whether you were lucky to not get a cuddle or not. But it was amazing seeing the passion build in you and to see you get so confident with it. I've never seen you so passionate about something as you have been over the last 6 months with campaigning. But unfortunately, you didn't get in somehow. People of Uplands, what you doing? But it was unfortunate because to see someone so passionate about the local area not get in is always a sad thing. How did you deal with that? It must have been a bit of a kick in the nuts.
I'm still kind of dealing with it, to be honest. It's I get a lot of people say, oh, you shouldn't dwell on it or anything like that. But when you put yourself out there for 6 months and you do it as hard as you can. I had to leave my job in order to do it because I worked for the council. You can't stand for election and work for the council. So, I put my all into it. I had a great team of people who also put their all into it. The other candidates and activists. And, when that first box came in on the count and I saw all the votes for the now councillors, the Uplands Party, I was a little bit like, oh, maybe we aren't going to get this. But you save face because you're in a room with about 100 other people. And the Uplands Party were kind enough to invite me for a drink afterwards. And it's quite hard to sit there with people who've won when you tried as hard as you could. But, you got to be the bigger man in that sort of thing. I went through, on the day, I was like, well, I did all I could. The day after, I felt I'd failed the people of Uplands and I'd failed the Labour Party. Really felt really low, and that stuck with me for another day after that. Received some unpleasant messages, which actually, for the first time in probably about 15 years, I ended up like crying in my bathroom just because I felt that way about it. But on the flip side, I think that kind of shows that, I put my all into it. I'm disappointed with the result, and I'm clearly passionate about the area and what the difference the Labour Party can make for the area. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I wouldn't feel the way I did. And, it's the overriding feeling for me is that it was such a good experience to disconnect from national politics, because national politics is a bit crap at the moment. Whatever side you're on, it's not terribly interesting. There's all this back and forth, all that sort of stuff. When you look at it at the local level, and you can see the difference that like the party that you represent has made in Swansea, like, the regeneration of Swansea, everybody who's homeless is entitled to have a bed, things like that. And you are part of that. It's like, it's really surreal in one sense. And, I'd love to be part of it again if the opportunity came up.
So would that be your future in like the next step to rerun, or what would be the next step for you? Well, I don't know. I don't really plan what happens in my life ahead very much. I think the councillor stuff we planned a little bit more than we would normally. So, I mean,
I went for the job in the council because I knew it would end at the end of March, and I knew I wouldn't get support from my previous employer to run for election. At the same time, my wife went back to work. The sort of money I can bring in would all be spent on childcare. So it was a bit like, well, I can stay home for a bit. If I get elected, cool, I get a bit more freedom to do that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I've not been in a position of not working for like 8 years. So it's really hard to adjust to, waking up and not doing something. And I suppose the loss is a bit of a loss of purpose, but I would love to rerun, and I wouldn't, I'm not going to give you a politician's answer and be like, no, maybe not. I would love to rerun, and any opportunity that came up to rerun, I would take it. There can be difficulties if it's not in your local area, but I've lived in Swansea all my life, and I've lived in the east, I've lived in the west, I've lived up the hill, I've lived down the hill. So, it's there's a lot. There's hopefully going to be. There'll hopefully be an opportunity for me to do it again. Hopefully be a bit more successful this time. But, why I've spoken to quite a few people who've been established councillors for 30, 40 years, and they've all said you always lose your first election. That's just a rite of passage.
Yeah.
But, it's 5 years is a long time. It could be in a completely different place.
Yeah. But, it's. I'm excited to know what's next for you, and when you get around to that. Moving on from your political dealings, so to speak, we've, like I said before, we go back 15 plus years, and I don't really think mental health is something that we've taken a deep dive into, like each other's mental health. I know you've had battles with depression. I know that over the years, and you've definitely been there for mine. I remember I was going through a very rough patch, and you sent me a copy of Borderlands 2 with my face photoshopped onto the main character, and it was renamed Broderlands 2. I've still got that. I love that. So yeah, with the last nearly 9 years of parenting, how have you coped mentally with being responsible for a child? Well, 3 now. How have you coped with that? Was it hard at first?
It was difficult, I think, at first, because you've got to adjust how you live effectively. And, it can be difficult to obviously make time for yourself as well as, any significant other that you have. But you kind of muddle through it a little bit. I think the ages they're at now, like Oliver being 9 this year, Eleanor being 6, they're so full of energy. When they come round, they're so full of energy. I feel like they suck any energy out of me.
Yeah.
Just by watching them. But at the same time, it's like, it's so nice to see them develop into their own little person, develop their own little personalities, and also come up and also be very caring about stuff that they probably don't understand very much. So, we had to take some time out from seeing Oliver and Eleanor during the election because it was such a busy period, and we had COVID at one point, and it stuck with us for about 10 days. And it was nice to receive messages, sometimes video messages off them asking how the election's going and things like that. I remember receiving a leaflet to train as a police officer through the door, and Oliver took it out the letterbox and gave it to me and was like, "Is this that Labour Party thing you like?" I was like, no, but I think it's difficult. It's difficult really, because I feel like I've been a parent for nearly a third of my life now. It's just sort of, it is life. It is life, and it's nice to see them grow up, develop, become into their little personalities. They don't understand how much strain they sometimes put on you as an individual, but I kind of feel like you kind of just end up getting on with it. It's a sort of a fight or flight mechanism, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I mean, in terms of depression, mental health, mental health side of it. You know, I was fortunate to have some money when I first felt really depressed, and I had a really good counsellor in Aberystwyth, and going through that counselling process helped me understand when I was feeling depressed and how to sort of deal with it. So, you know, probably the last week I probably dipped in and out of feeling a bit depressed. It hasn't stuck around, thankfully, but I've always found just talking about it openly has been a way to that sort of help. So if I just sort of feel down, I just sort of explain to my wife, I'm feeling a bit miserable at the moment because X, Y, and Z. Probably shouldn't feel miserable because, you know, life's generally good, but it is what it is. It just happens for no reason sometimes.
It's absolutely valid to be feeling how you're feeling after putting so much effort into something and it didn't fruition in the way that you had hoped. It's bound to make you feel let down. Internally, I would go into some sort of spiral of what is wrong with me. That's the way I would go with it. And I don't blame you for feeling that way at all. It's absolutely valid.
Yeah.
But you said about counselling, and I believe counselling to be pretty important. But I'm a big believer in a lot more mental health stuff being taught at a school level. I believe being taught that it's okay and being taught how to deal with things at the youngest age possible is pretty important as well. And it because we are at a crisis of not having enough counsellors, and I think if we get taught ways to deal with it when we're younger, that would be a big thing to help. Is this something that you incorporate into your parenting, would you say?
I wouldn't say I wouldn't say I've had a whole lot of opportunity to incorporate it into parenting, to be honest. I would. I'm trying to think. The thing with young kids is there's two moods. There's mood swing and then there's happy. And because I don't see the older ones all the time, it's normally every other weekend. It's, you know, I'll always try and get them to open up if they're feeling down about something, and I'll always, you know, try and be like, you know, even though I'm your dad and I'm the figure of authority, I am your friend as well. You know, it's a balancing act. It's a balancing act. I don't think helps is there's still a bit of a stigma surrounding mental health, and I think that comes from, you know, because you don't see it. You can question. People feel like they can question it, and when people feel like they can question it, all the wrong aspects get questioned. Like, you know, if you broke your arm, people would give you the benefit of the doubt and sort of be like, yeah, there's something wrong with you. You've broken your arm. We'll tread on eggshells around anything arm related. But then if you're like, oh, I'm feeling really depressed, people are like, well, you don't look depressed. You're not acting depressed. And it's like, well, what does looking depressed or acting depressed mean? I always found when I felt depressed, I sleep really heavy, like really, really heavy. So I always look well rested and I look okay. But, you know, it takes so many different forms for people. And, you know, we see encouragement in the media, you know, be kind, but then, you know, in about a month, we're back to not being very kind, or, you know, not taking into consideration how other people feel. It's not a sign of weakness to sort of
course not.
As a man or a woman to sort of be like, I'm depressed. I think it's quite the opposite to sort of be honest about that sort of stuff.
The last couple of years through Lionminded, I've always done something for Mental Health Awareness Week. And I had a couple of messages this week saying, why have you not done anything this week for mental health awareness? I'm not a big fan of it. Like, everyone's aware these days. Like, there is a massive stigma, like you said, but there's been millions and millions of pounds put into making people aware, and just having a week where you get up and say, hey, men get sad too, It's like, yeah, we're aware of that. What needs to be more aware of is how to cope with it, how undercut the services are. And yeah, I think Mental Health Awareness Week should become Mental Health Action Week, where you get out and you actually do something about it.
Yeah.
And there's so many services out there that can help you, so many groups and so many things that can help people. And it's more than just awareness now. It's a crisis and it needs helping. And it was probably a mistake on my part not to do something and cash in on the hashtag, so to speak. But I've never been about that. It's I don't know. I think the whole awareness side of it is people are aware, but people need to start actually doing something about it now.
Yeah.
And it's a very undercut service and something that definitely needs to be put into place. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent there. So yeah, should we leave the Ceri Powe interview there? I think we've covered a lot of stuff. Or do you have anything else you want to add?
There's one thing I would add that I didn't mention when you talked about running for election that kind of came to me after we got off that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even though outwardly I'm probably quite confident, quite anxious inside. So when you go out and you see this,
if you waited to pull that out.
Yeah, I have. And you see this everywhere and you're on the leaflet and these are in people's windows. It's really, really strange. It's really, really strange when people recognize you in the street and sort of be like, oh, you're the Labour guy, you're the Labour man. Sounds like a really cool superhero I would love to be, but it's so weird. Like I feel quite anxious walking through the uplands at the moment because I'm aware that we lost, but I'm also aware that about 10,000 people have seen this, and there are people who might point me out in the street, but
for good reasons.
For good reasons, hopefully. But there's that side of it as well. It's like the longest job interview you'll ever do. And the interviewers are 10,000 people who live in the houses that you knock, and you've got to try and convince about 30% of them to vote for you. And it's really surreal. But before I add that there, I suppose you can edit that in somewhere.
Maybe. Yeah, of course I will. But yeah, you've made us all proud. Doesn't matter what the result was. You've done amazing, and you put your whole Poe energy into it, and you made us very proud. And we'll be back after this break. Hey, this is Chris, this is James, and this is Joel. And we are called Sometimes We Sound Like This. Other times we sound like this. And we love a good punk cover too. Follow for more. Love you. We're back. That was a fun interview. I enjoyed that. It's always nice to catch up. We haven't actually seen each other in person for a long time.
No.
So we talk literally every day. But you live probably about 15-minute walk. But we just we'll sort that out. We'll fix that.
I'm free now, generally all the time.
You are free.
With Arlo.
Yes, we will have to organise a play date.
Yeah, you'd love that.
Speaking of play dates, it's on my list of parenting as an introvert. 5 tips to help if you are an introverted person and you are parenting. You said you are quite extroverted with introverted tendencies, or What about Oliver, Eleanor, and Arlo? Well, Arlo, you might be a bit young, but
Arlo's like very close to me at the moment, so he's you'll take him to a play date sometimes, and he'll be a bit shy, and then he'll let loose and enjoy himself around other children, other parents. Oliver's very extroverted, very, very extroverted. Like, we'll talk to strangers in the street. Like, I think we bought him like a model train for his birthday once, and we took him to the park, and this person got out the car and he's like, "Excuse me, I got this train for my birthday." And it's like, okay then. Eleanor's the same as well, but I think Eleanor kind of emulates a little bit of Oliver. But I feel like she's got her own timer as well, where she gets fed up with being out and around people. But Oliver's probably the most extroverted. Eleanor probably around about the same. Arlo sometimes a bit shy, but then he's only one, he's still a baby. Sometimes, being away from mum is enough to ruin his day. So,
I consider myself an introvert. I can be an extrovert. I can put that mask on when needed. Rory is very extroverted, but he needs a day every now and again where he just needs to chill because it can tire him out. And Ace is the introvert of all introverts. He just doesn't like the social stuff at all. But I was talking with my therapist a couple of weeks ago about how introversion is always painted as quite a bad thing, quite a negative thing. We're raised in a system that really champions extroverts, and a school system that is molded towards extroverts. The loudest voice in the room is normally the one that's most listened to. But I think I've had to relearn, I suppose, that the loudest voice isn't always the wisest. Being an introvert has its pros as well, definitely. But it can be quite hard to parent as an introvert, especially if you have a wild, extroverted child like Oliver or Rory. It can be quite tiring. So I've put together 5 points, 5 tips that can help a parent out there, because this is something I'm really focusing on at the moment. It's something I want to write a lot about because I feel like there's a lot to talk about with it. But 5 points. Point number 1, sleep. Sleep is so important. If you get a good sleep routine with the kids, not only does it having a healthy amount of sleep make everything a little bit easier, but it can make the kids a bit happier too. And knowing that when it turns like 7 p.m, you can have some time to unpack the day and recharge your battery a bit. It can make things a lot easier. I think sleep is one of those underrated things for parenting, especially when you have your first kid and there's not much sleep going on. But I feel it gets easier with each one. But on the subject of sleep, I would say point number 2, try and wake up an hour before your kids, as hard as it may be. Being able to start your day at your own pace is a little life secret that I'll always want to keep doing once I've started doing it, because you can catch up on any news, you can take in some sunlight and some fresh air, have a cuppa, have a quiet breakfast without little hands reaching up trying to take your toast. That whole thing, it can help deal with any stressy morning arguments as well, because Rory at the moment, he wakes up, he's like, I've not had enough sleep, I can't go to school. Which could be, if I'm just woke up as well, I can't handle that very well. But if I've had some time to wake up and come to my senses, I can be a bit more, let's talk about it. Let's not turn it into a rush and an argument. But yeah, getting up a lot earlier has really helped me get my brain into gear, as my dad would say. Get your brain into gear and you can handle stuff a bit better. Point number 3, I would say try and find half an hour a day where your kids will go have some quiet play. Rory, for instance, he loves Lego. Like, you sit him down with some Lego, you won't hear him. That's the only time you will not hear him. He's a little hurricane. But find something that the kids will sit down, sit still for a bit of time, and books, puzzles, jigsaws, things like that. That can really help break up your day a bit. If you can't do that, then point number 4, like I've already spoiled earlier, organize a play date. If your kids aren't the type to have a quiet hour, then it may sound counterintuitive, but have another kid come over. Because if your child is a bit more extroverted, then that social interaction will take up their time and it'll be good for them. And they might not need as much parent pressure. They might not involve you as much because they've got someone else to talk to. And sometimes the other parent might offer to take your kid for a bit and over their house, and you can have some quiet time as well. So it works back and forth, which is it can be good for the kid as well if they're very extroverted. And I think number 5, and probably the most important point, is to take control of your own needs. Make yourself a priority. It's okay to do that. If you need certain living arrangements to be able to function and be a great parent, then it's going to help everyone. Be open and honest with your kids about introversion and extroversion, and open with your friends and family too, and make it clear what you need to function. I believe honesty is the best policy, and talking to people about how you're doing and what you need can be very beneficial. So round up those 5 points again. Number 1, sleep is important. Number 2, wake up an hour before the kids if you can. Number 3, quiet play. Number 4, organize a play date. And number 5, take control of your own damn needs. It's important. I think that's all we got for this week. Hi. So, just editing and realized we cut the video off before I could say goodbye and wrap it all up. So, thank you for watching. Thank you to Ceri for coming on. Always great to chat to him. And yeah, like, subscribe and all that. Go to lionminded.uk. Support us. And yeah, be good to yourself. Love you, safe travels.